So this happened in 2013 and I was 17. My family was looking at this house and the owner showed up and talked with my parents. Seemed like a nice older man. Built the house himself. It's a pretty nice 2-story house overlooking a river. Anyway, I was standing back watching everyone talk, and as the owner is talking and laughing, there's a break in the conversation where he turns away from my parents, and his expression completely and instantly changes from happy to the most sinister and hateful scowl I've ever seen. I don't think he noticed me watching. It probably appeared to be on my phone as my head was down. As soon as he turned back, he instantly went back to smiling. It was so creepy and honestly made me feel sick. I told my mom, who said it was weird, but maybe he's just awkward. So we got the house. We moved in, and the next weekend my family is going to church. But I don't feel like going, and they all leave me at home. It's Sunday morning about 11 a.m. when I hear really loud banging outside. It's coming from the side of the house, and I was on the other side of the house on the second floor. Honestly, I thought it was maybe the wind, and I didn't think much of it. It stopped after about 5 minutes. 10 minutes later, I hear footsteps around downstairs. After that, I hear chairs moving, kitchen cabinets opening, and the fridge opening. I immediately quietly go lock my door, grab my baseball bat, and call 911. While I tell them my address, I text my mom and tell her that someone is in the house, and that I've called 911. At that point, the 911 operator said that someone was 10 minutes out. I tell my mom to hurry home, because I heard steps walking towards the stairs. Basically, the house is so thin I could track where he was in the house. At this time, my mom responded that she's on her way, and she's 30 minutes away. So here is a 17-year-old girl hunkered in her room, full well knowing that if he came in, he'd overpower me and take the bat. I was terrified. I heard him walk down the hallway towards my door. I saw the handle turn and stop. It was locked, and I heard him stand there. He didn't move. I could hear his breathing. It felt like forever, but really I think it was about 10 seconds. He then turned and go back down. I heard the back door open and shut. About 3 minutes later, the police pulled up. The 911 operator asked me if I could let them in, or if they needed to force it. I knew he had left, so I let them in. No one was there. No sign of forced entry. Nothing. When my mom got there, she looked at my stepdad and asked if he had changed the locks, and he said no. I think the creepiest part, and what really validated my story, was that my mom had just vacuumed the hallway, and there were shoe prints that were larger than anyone in our house, and the police hadn't been up there. They stopped just outside my room. My boyfriend, who I live with, works as a teacher in a town about 15 minutes away by train. He gets home more or less at the same time every day. I, on the other hand, work from home. In late January of this year, we'd gotten in a pretty big fight about something stupid. I can't even remember what it was about now, but it was one of those fights where we didn't speak to each other, text, call, or anything the whole next day. So this afternoon I was lying in bed getting work done. It was a Tuesday, and I was pretty sure his last class finished at 1 p.m. on Tuesdays, meaning he'd surely be home at 2:30. But around 1 p.m. I heard the front door open and shut. I thought he's home an hour early today. It was normal for him to skip his last class every once in a while, so I didn't really think anything of it. In fact, I was mostly mentally preparing for the awkward post-fight, how's it going conversation. So I continued to lie in bed and do my work, and wait for him to come in and change his clothes. The bedroom door was closed, and I had earplugs sort of half in, as I usually do when I'm working, but I could hear the heavy footsteps of him walking around the apartment, as he always does. If we hadn't been mid-fight, and I wasn't so preoccupied with the awkwardness of it all, I might have noticed it was strange how slow the footsteps were, or how long he spent walking around the living room that day. But I was caught up in the dramatics of the fight, and didn't think about it. I was just lying there, waiting for him to finally come in. Finally, the bedroom door slowly opened just a few inches. I turned my head towards the door, and prepared to give him a sort of awkward, "We've been fighting for 24 hours. But the door didn't open more than a few inches. I looked and saw that it was a woman's hand with red nail polish on the doorknob. Whoever was there slowly closed the door just as they had opened it, without entering the room. I jumped out of bed, ripped out my earplugs, and sort of froze there for a few seconds while thinking rapidly. My first thought, That was not my boyfriend. For some reason, I concluded that surely it was his mom or sister. So I opened the bedroom door and walked into the living room. There wasn't anyone there, but the room smelled heavily of women's perfume. Then I came to my senses and realized his mom and sister don't have keys and have never come over before. The landlady has never entered without permission. This was a stranger. I ran back into the bedroom and shut the door, now shaking heavily. There's a balcony connected to the bedroom, so despite the cold January rain, I stood on the balcony and called my boyfriend. He picked up, and I asked him if his mom or sister might come over unannounced. He told me, "No, don't move. I'm calling the police." The police were there in minutes and searched the whole apartment. Of course, nobody was there by this point. It was weird, though. Nothing was missing from the apartment, despite us keeping a jar full of money right in the entrance. Nothing was even touched. In fact, it seemed like the intruder came straight to the bedroom, saw my legs on the bed, panicked, and left. Plus, you can't open that big wooden front door without a key. For a few days, my boyfriend and I were convinced it was just the landlady being nosy. Nevertheless, we demanded that the landlady change our locks. When she came to change them with her husband, she made a discovery. There was a square area by the keyhole that had been scratched away with something. The landlady said surely someone used tools to break into the apartment. Then, a day or two later, my boyfriend told me, "I have to tell you something, but don't freak out." He told me that the orange kitchen scissors were missing. I obviously freaked out. I tore the apartment apart looking for those scissors. It's been 6 months and those scissors are gone. So the whole thing is just creepy and weird. A stranger breaks into my apartment, but doesn't touch or take anything valuable. Not even the money jar sitting right in the entrance. Takes scissors from the kitchen, goes straight to the bedroom, sees someone in bed, and immediately leaves. I never got to meet the person who opened the door that day. I hope I never do. This happened a few years ago, in my old one-person flat. I had a strange feeling that something wasn't right for a few days. Like I was sure that food in the fridge was less than I put back the last time. I found pillows from my couch on the floor, stuff like that. I lived alone back then, so there wasn't anyone else with access to my flat. Well, one night I woke up around 1 a.m. sweating, and even though I didn't remember, I was sure I woke from a nightmare. Since I was drenched in sweat, I decided to take a shower, so I put my phone up in the bathroom for music, turned on the water, and enjoyed my shower. A few minutes in, I heard the door move. I never close it. I took a look at the shower curtain and saw a shadow against it, and a look at my phone and confirmed someone was there. Since I could clearly see a reflection in my screen that showed someone standing next to the shower curtain. It took me a lot not to scream and to keep acting like I didn't notice anything. I silently taking the shower head off the holding and turning the water all the way to hot. Our water got really hot when you cranked it all the way to hot, and a few seconds later, steam was raising, and the water hurt my feet flowing to the drain. I turned around, ripped the shower curtain open, and held the shower head right at the person behind. It was a woman. She screamed in pain. I whacked her in the face with the shower head, and jumped out of the shower and ran to the door, taking the key out of the lock and locking it close behind me. A little later, she started to bang on the door. I called the cops and went to the kitchen to get my big kitchen knife, just for safety. I felt like my throat was closing up when I saw it missing and realized there's only one place where it could possibly be right now. The police came and arrested the woman, who turned out to have been the former person living in the flat, and was kicked out after not paying rent. Seems she made a copy of the key, and came into the flat when I was at work, and sometimes at night. It's possible that what woke me up in the first place was her. And honestly, I don't even want to think about it. I found the knife later in the bathroom, so she definitely brought it with her. And either the police disarmed her, or she dropped it herself at any point. Ever since then, I always insist that the locks are changed when I move into a new place. I was 12, and my older sister and I were home alone for the weekend. While I was waiting for a friend to pick me up, there was a knock on the door, thinking it was her, so I ran to answer it without checking through the peephole. I saw a man was standing there with a clipboard and said he needed to check our gas meter. I was entrenched in the disappointment of my friend still not having arrived, so just told him, "Sure, whatever you need to do." I didn't notice at the time, but he wasn't dressed as a city official. He had on a green and purple shirt with bold stripes. He came in and immediately went up the stairs to where our bedrooms were, and walked into the open door of my room. The typical girly girl room with pink and glitter. Thank God. My sister came down the stairs at almost that exact moment, she said. "Is that Daphne's dad? Why is he going upstairs?" And I complained about how Daphne wasn't here, and was going on about how unreliable she was. When my sister cut me off, "Wait, if Daphne isn't here, who is that?" I said. "He's here to read the gas meters." Her face turned white. She flung open the front door and dragged me out, hand clamped over my protesting mouth. Neither of us had a cell phone. It was the 60s, and obviously weren't going back in the house to call authorities on the landline phone. Then my ever-resourceful sister had a stroke of genius. A man was walking right by our house, and she motioned him over. She called loudly into the house. "Oh, Dad, it's good you're home. A man from the city is here to read the gas meters upstairs." The man in the striped shirt bolted out of the house. The man on street asked us repeatedly if we were okay, if we needed him to stay, and wait in the yard with us until our parents came home. We were so startled that we barely thanked him before slamming and locking the doors and windows. As irate as my sister was that I let someone in the house, she begged me not to call the authorities because my parents left her in charge, and she worried she'd be in trouble. I didn't want to catch any heat from carelessly allowing some guy in, so I was on the same page. 3 weeks later, a girl in our community went missing. She was home alone, and authorities found the door open and no signs of forced entry. My sister and I discussed our options, but deep down knew we had no choice but to come clean. We told the police everything. I don't know if it ever helped, but they did tell us they had reason to believe it was the same man. They also tracked down the man who helped us on the street. Turns out we already knew him. He worked in the butcher shop. We just didn't recognize him. He was lifelong friends with the family after that. Our parents were mortified. They weren't angry with us, just glad we were okay, though they did review all the rules of caution and didn't leave us home alone for a while. They never caught the man, but fear not. He was in what appeared to be his early 30s in the 1960s, so in any case, he has to be dead by now. I just thank God every day for my sister's resourcefulness and quick action.